I turn it off. Okay, you guys, hello everyone, and welcome. I'm Jenna Blackard,
And I'm Leonka Reina.
and this is the How Hustle Morning Show. Today we're talking with Emily Ridout, and she is going to take us on a journey of astrology and tarot, and maybe we'll even tap on some numerology.
Yay.
Yeah, and if you missed her call last November, you really missed something. She's absolutely phenomenal. She knows this work inside out, upside down. She
Yeah.
also does astro yoga, which is quite the dynamic little mix of yogic
It's so interesting. But to get into that, before we jump
do.
in, yes, we've got a little bit of mystic space weather news for you. Today is February 11th, and we have from spaceweathernews.com. It says the auroras for Valentine's Day. Another solar wind stream is heading for Earth. It's flowing a canyon-like hole in the sun's atmosphere. First contact with the stream will be on February 14th, and it could cause some G-class geomagnetic storms with Arctic auroras for Valentine's Day. So that'll be some beautiful viewing.
Oh, pink.
Yeah, and then according to NASA, the snow moon will arrive on February 12th. So we've got a whole new full moon, lasts for 2 days, and then it also says just in time for Valentine's Day. Great time to spot Venus, which is the planet named after the Roman goddess of love. So if you're looking up into your skies, just be sure to acknowledge the Roman planet of love, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, just give some homage to all of the love that we're spreading around here on Earth. And that's what I got from Mystic Space Weather News.
To add to that, I think we're having a full moon on Valentine's
Isn't that what I said? I
Day.
said new moon or full moon. I think I meant full moon. But it is. It's it is. It'll be for Valentine's Day as well.
So I'm starting a new segment. It's called The Morning a Brew. And
With woo.
with Woo. And this morning brew with Woo, I wanted to share some of my insights that I got from my entry of my channel just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And one of the things I got was some insights on how we, as a multi-dimensional being, how we have no time, no space. And what I got was that it's all frequency based.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of an interesting insight. The other piece that they gave me was, well, of course, you're embodied in an avatar here on planet Earth. Why would you think that you would remember any of this and what you are throughout the conscious realms?
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of a cool insight, right? It's just kind of like, oh, okay. Now I don't really know how to timeline jump, or do I? Right? As much as I could, as true pure consciousness.
Sure. I
It's kind
think
of
one
neat.
of the things that I learned from that was that we don't bring in all of our whole self here. And the reason we don't is it because if we were to bring in all of ourself that is connected to source, so that what you would call your higher power, we literally would burn out these avatars. Like we would burn out our bodies because it just is too much energy and we're way too potent. Didn't that sound exciting?
Don't you? I don't know. I don't know that I 100% agree. And the reason I don't is because, I mean, what we would become is just more of the light body of us.
Exactly.
And we would be not such a dense being, and we wouldn't be able to really touch as
No,
much as we
but if
can.
you think about it, imagine all of your light source coming into this
Oh,
body.
yeah.
And you just
No,
would
that's
be
way
too
too much.
correct. You just be too potent for this body.
Yeah.
It would literally short circuit yourself out.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it also makes you think about how potent we really are. And if
Yeah.
we're utilizing all of those capacities and really connecting with source and our higher selves, well, dang, we've got a lot of potency to be
Absolutely.
had that we just don't acknowledge. So that's a little bit of something.
Yeah. But I don't know. All of this just seems so freaking cool to me.
It does, right?
Yeah, love it.
Joe says, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
All righty.
All right. So let's go ahead and bring Emily onto the screen and we'll get into this. Emily, in our last conversation, you like totally blew our minds. I was just kind of, I even was going, why do we need astrology? Why do we need tarot? It's all mythic. It was almost
Yeah.
where I was at the time. And as we finished the call, I was like, screw it. I love this. I'm
Yeah.
like all in.
Yeah.
So I've evolved just a little bit from your last show. And, I think among all of the people who talk astrology and tarot on the show, you are the one that really knows this inside out and upside down and can really help us decipher who we are as a subconscious being. And so I'd like to start there just a little bit, but why don't you, for the people who don't know you, just give them a nugget of who you are and why you do this work and really how it shows up in your life.
Well, those are such kind words, so thank you. And also, hi, everybody on this call and future people who may watch this too.
That's right.
Cool to see you guys. My name's Emily Ridout, as Jeneth shared, and I've been doing this work for a little over 15 years, maybe 16, give or take. And, I do it because when I first encountered it, it shocked me that it worked. And then I went on this like 15-year deep dive and wound up becoming, you know, able to read Jyotish astrology, the Indian tradition, Western astrology, Hellenistic astrology, and medical astrology, and then wound up having sort of a unified theory look at all of this. And the cool thing about it is it gives you so much information, so much information that we wouldn't otherwise have, or that we could get maybe, as Jeneth noted, from the mythic symbolism of the world around us, but that we don't always decipher correctly, mostly due to our own subconscious programming. And I loved what you guys were saying in the intro. I was like, oh, I have some thoughts on those things, of course, too. So I'm sure we will have a rich conversation. But sorry, the professional breakdown, just to add on to that, would be I read astrology, I teach yoga, I train yoga teachers and astrologers in continuing education in astro yoga. And then I also have a lot of resources like a membership and a school for people who are looking to learn this stuff or just use it even without learning it, but to interact with astrologers and get that perspective. So that's my breakdown. I wrote a book on it too, if you just want to read, and that's it.
I love.
She's so humble,
I
and
was
then
gonna
when you get her
say.
going, it's like, what? Whoa.
It's so different though, because I was thinking, so I was listening to like Tony Robbins the other day, and he was like, then one way to create astronomical change was to bring in the physiological into every aspect. And I thought, and it just so happened I was looking through your stuff and I thought, wow, what an amazing way to bridge the yoga with the astrology into having like, I just had never even seen that. And I was like, and she does this every day. Like she puts this out like daily. I think hopefully I'm not paraphrasing wrong, but I'm just saying like I just thought it was very amazing that you had something to offer in that way. We've heard that, astrology had always been something that, you'll see in like different columns, or you look at, you're like, hey, let me just check my astrology, whatnot. But to bring in that like physical aspect really does change you whenever you can bridge those two. Do you have like, is that was the reason why you did this, or do you have some more ways that you'd like to talk about that? And you were breaking up just a little bit, so just
Yeah, so
know.
actually, yeah, it's breaking up a little on my end, but I think I got the gist of it. So
Okay.
the physical bridge is definitely why I do it. In medical astrology, we approach it more like, if someone has an illness they're trying to heal or wants to optimize their health in the best way they can, or simply learn what their body is communicating to them, to look at that not from the level of like, oh, something's wrong, we fix it, but from the level of the soul and the body are in communication, and we can come to higher comprehension of this, and therefore utilize this all now in, right? Good piece of it. To your point, actually, in your introduction, you had that question of, if we embodied our whole light body, would we just burn up to a crisp because the avatar can't handle it? That is a central question in Astro Yoga. And in fact, when you do spiritual practice, right, at a certain point, people's body minds start to experience realms of their own consciousness naturally. We sometimes call it the Kundalini rising or a great awakening, that surprise them at a certain point, and they have to go then seek answers. And so, written in the subtext of astrology, of yoga, in the Kabbalah and the tarot as well, are instructions for the people who experience these states of consciousness, where you can't just go talk to, the person down the street and say, I experienced this higher level awakening, because then they'll say, well, I think you're crazy, or something like that. So in Astro Yoga, they actually depict and show what happens to the physical body, because even though you might look exactly the same, right, to an external observer, on the inner realm, there are physical shifts that accompany the shift in consciousness. So literally, the intestine, right? They say that Krishna is born of a virgin. Christ is born. Both of these things, we hear that, we're like, that doesn't make sense, right? But an astrologer would hear that and say, the Christ consciousness or the Krishna consciousness or the Amrit, right, the nectar consciousness that is available to each human, is born in the Virgin or Virgo ruled section of the body, because Virgo is the Virgin and rules over the intestine. And when we study long-term meditants, people who experience these higher states of consciousness that now there's so much cool research on, right? They're doing brain scans, all these neat things. We find that though some people sometimes change their diet because they crave different,
Emily, I just want people to hear that one
without
part.
it overt. Oh, sure.
So if you could just re-say what you said there. You said just a little bit, just back up just a little bit, because that point, that part was pretty important. And I wanted people to really get that.
Sure. Did you hear? Because it's not breaking up on my end when I'm
Okay,
speaking.
good.
Is
And
it
hopefully not for other people, but I just want to make sure everybody's got that on the clean. Basically, I can't even give you your words back.
It's okay. Did you hear about Virgo?
Yes, we did hear about Virgo. Yes.
Okay. And then did you hear about how the intestine starts to
Yes.
receive time differently?
Oh,
Okay.
that's it right there. That's the part we missed. So the
Mhm.
intestine starts to receive time differently. Is that what you said?
Chyme, the digestive fluid. So
Ah, got you. Yes. I was like, yes,
the
yes.
stuff, the
Gotcha.
stuff in the intestine. So it receives the nutrients differently. It
Ah,
incorporates it into the blood differently. And
wow.
then the brain has physiological shifts from there. So we see a change in the Virgo ruled section first, then into the blood and therefore the heart and the brain. And these are interesting places because the heart is ruled by Leo, which is one of the sort of light consciousness places. And then Leo is associated additionally with the third eye chakra. So, and specifically the pineal gland. There's a lunar pituitary gland plays a role in this, shifting the body's physiological response. And you don't have to know all this, people listening to sort of get the understanding or the gist that the body also changes. And so even though from an external perspective, your face is the same, your body is the same, we create shifts on these internal planes, and our bodies really are specialized tools for what we do. So for example, a great pianist, right, their body becomes a specialized tool for that. My body can't play I can maybe bang out a few notes if I really try, but it'll never be like a beautiful Chopin recital.
Yeah.
But a great can do that sometimes without any. Likewise, meditants shift their bodies through their repeated daily practice. And that's why we say it takes 7 years of a meditation practice to see if it's actually working. Because if you don't do that with consistency, you don't have the 7-year cycle of the body overturn, which is a quarter Saturn cycle for the astrology people in the room. And that changes the body and refreshes most of the cells in the body. And so you're literally given a new body in your meditation. And so it's putting in, let's say you have a mantra that you use for 7 years. That mantra has now infused all of your cells if you do it with daily regularity. And that's the part that people are like, well, I quit because that's, boring, but it's actually very exciting, but it's a slow clap.
I love that so much. It's funny with Joe Dispenza, he says through each meditation, sometimes now you get to enter this world as a new body. And that's exact. And he also makes tune to it takes progress, right? You look for the progress that changes your frequency, then your frequency changes, and that informs the field, and then you move to the next level in your progress, right? If you're trying to heal something, but basically you do come back as a different body. It's kind of freaking awesome.
It's super awesome.
It's super awesome that all these things are coming over parallel too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Emily, if people wanted to ask you a couple questions, are you open to having them ask you a couple questions or yeah? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so you guys go ahead and raise your hand if you what are some of the greatest questions that people can
Oh,
ask
that's a
you
good question.
that are super fast and succinct that you can just, give them insights right away?
Are you asking me any question
Like,
that
what's a good question for them to ask? Because I think that they're like,
has is probably a question someone else has or something parallel. So I encourage any question, whether it's about astrology, place, anything, anything we've been talking about. What you were saying about Venus is the evening star is interesting. The incorporation of what the solar flares do with the northern lights and how that enters your life.
Oh,
All interesting,
wow, cool. They can
yeah,
ask.
I'd love to have that because we talk a lot about that in the Mystic Space Weather
Yes.
News, but I only bring that in with whatever I've learned and whatever I read and have studied. But I'd love to hear your perspective on that, on the solar flares and how that affects. Yes, sorry.
bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually top of mind for me because I haven't even sent out the announcement, but I'm going to Iceland this fall to lead a yoga retreat. And so that we can specifically practice Astro Yoga under the Northern Lights for this reason. But the Northern Lights, or you don't have to go to the Northern Lights to feel the solar flares. Of course, they're more palpable and potent. You see the light dancing. If anyone's ever been under the Northern Lights, I've had some really cool experiences, like just seeing the majesty of it. But when solar flares happen, a lot of people, get thrown for a loop because astrology doesn't explicitly, you don't see the solar flare in the astrology chart. You just see the sun. And of course, the solar flares follow this sort of almost spiral. Earth. And there's something that we talk about in these systems, which is that all of manifest reality, you're talking about space being a projection of vibrational awareness, right? One of the bases for the projection of vibrational awareness that creates space and creates matter within that space is the understanding that it originates as the subtlest forms of light. And so sometimes this is referred to something like the sun beyond the sun. And you're like, what's that mean? And we could spend the whole hour discussing that. But we have this understanding that there's these subtle forms of light. And then we have the understanding that the light that we see is another subtle form of vibration that we can actually receive with our overt senses. So not just our subtle senses sensing it, but we see the sun, for example, and we see the sun quite vibrantly. Now you can't look straight at it most of the time because it's so bright. And even if you could, you couldn't quite see what's going on there. But it's a plasmic ball of light. It's spinning roughly, within that plasmic spinning, roughly at the same rate as the moon. It's vibrating, or it's sending these rays out to us, and we are receiving them. And when we have these solar flares, we get an extra influx of energy. And we see things on Earth, right? Like the electrical grid has been disrupted, or the northern lights happen, and these sorts of things that we can see very overtly, but it enters our bodies as well. Just like radiation enters, an X-ray, the Wi-Fi, for better or worse, right? Some vibrations you might be like, I don't really want X-rays like going through me all the time. We know that's not good, but the light vibration goes through you. It's a high rate of vibration. And so people have interesting responses to it, to your point. And this often has to do with how well their avatar is suited to receive this. A really good thing to do for the people on this call, I know you're all tapped in, is just surrender to the idea of there might be a lot of energy coming in, and I'm going to decide to be okay within this influx of energy. Some people receive a lot of energy in this form, which is this light energy. And what happens is it hits what in yoga we call a samskara, which is a latent seed impression of a past experience. Now, this could be many people, or maybe all people, right, have traumatic or devastating or really difficult things in their past, especially if we consider past life awareness along with this. I don't think anyone has escaped the whole shebang of the human experience, right? And so depending on the person, it might hit them in such a way where something comes out. Now, this could be the purging of that old emotion, so that no longer will this be inside you. It's sort of like off-gassing. It's been burned up by the vibration. Or it could awaken something inside you which feels really good, right? Like, oh, I've just felt like my Kundalini has moved naturally. Of course, we don't force the Kundalini. I feel awake. I suddenly feel capable of solving my problems on a level I hadn't before, this kind of thing. So it might feel good, it might feel bad, but what it does feel like is a lot of energy coming in. And my advice to just generally would be, let it, let yourself have the experience you have now, and see if you can remain conscious within it. So to not be like, oh, that hurts, I'm tapping out, or that hurts, so I'm going to go 10 times harder, right? Both ways of avoiding feeling something, but just like, oh, this is what is, and here I am now. And kind of exciting because now is right. It's before. Here
I'm
it
kind
is.
of loving this. Where my head is reeling to is, wow, well, yoga and us being a part of this galaxy, I mean, that must have always been because you do have sun salutations and you do have these moon salutations and you have really some of the Sanskrit that they bring into yoga, that Vedic art is really almost a language where we talk with the galaxies. So do you have some insight on how that works? Like how
Yes.
sounds
Oh,
sounds and astrology? I'm
you
breaking.
cut out for a second there. I heard the part about yoga, and then what was the question though? Insights about astrology?
As astrology and the sound vibrations of the Vedic arts, like
Yes,
Sanskrit.
excellent question.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned before, that originating vibration sometimes is viewed as what's called the limitless light.
Mhm.
Yoga, very often, especially mantra yoga, we consider the originating vibration to be what's called the ati sukshma, the extremely subtle sound vibration. And so in that system, they have this vision of a goddess speaking the world into existence, speaking
Wow.
your body into existence. And that's why mantra is so powerful for changing our states of consciousness and literally physical reality. In Sanskrit, they don't call
That's
Sanskrit,
bad.
like the word alphabet, right, comes from Greek or Hebrew, right? Aleph, bet in Hebrew, alpha, beta, right?
Mm.
Have this idea. In Sanskrit, it is a matrika malini, which means the garland of little mothers. Now, some people know not to. So a garland of letters, right? Where does body come from, right? Is your literal mother. And the garland of little mothers is how we string together words,
Ah,
vibrational modalities to then speak existence as it is. And
Mm.
words can be mantric, meaning they hold the vibration of what manifests, or they can be non-mantric, right? And you're glad that some words are non-mantric because you hear people speak sarcastically or they jokingly threaten one another, and you're
yes.
glad it's not all literal. On the other hand, the way it works as well is that the predominating suggestion to your subconsciousness is what comes forward as manifestation.
I'm so excited you said that because I walk around
So
all
very
day.
powerful manifestors, powerful yogis will be able to utter the mantra. Oh, what?
I was going to say, I'm so excited that you're saying all this because I walk around all day saying words are codes. I mean, I'm just like I am all about the vibration and the like of stuff. And I'm like, now I find myself like shutting people down. Like, I don't mean to, but like, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, I'm like, you are literally creating, like, you are creating because of the vibration, the code factor of what you are saying. And this is, not only what I got downloaded, but like I mean, I just knew like the logos was everything. Not the end of be all, but it is a very key component of how we create in this reality.
Yes, exactly. And so, I mean, they know now, right?
Yes.
And it's funny, I was just teaching a class on this last week, but your atomic structure is vibratory. They used to think, oh, there are these little things called protons, neutrons, and electrons, and they have matter. But then you keep looking at them, and suddenly they're made of subatomic particles.
Yes.
And suddenly you find out that it's not actually matter at all. It is, in fact, vibration. And so the ancient yogis, geniuses,
I know.
learned this through their meditation practice and through identification with what you were calling before the higher self or this higher level of awareness. And so, yeah, so Sanskrit definitely mantric in nature, very beautiful. Hebrew, also a mantric language used by the Kabbalists, right? These sort of understandings of these vibrations. But for for anyone who's like, well, I don't speak Sanskrit or Hebrew, like, of course, you can go to a teacher of like mantra who can like initiate you into your meditation practice or something, but also you can use your words now. So if you get off this call, something I like to think about is on my worst day, or when if you've ever been around someone and they're just down in the dumps and they start talking, and they usually say something like, I'm no good, I can't do anything right, or they're no good, they can't do any, something like that.
Yeah.
To really listen to that and be when you're the one down in the dumps and be like, is this actually what I want to be saying to myself here? Because it will spiral back down. Or do you want like a more nuanced opinion, like, oh, I did something and it was, it didn't turn out as I expected, and I'm willing to forgive myself and move on. Like it's a different vibration than the beratement either of self or other. And then the other thing to pay attention to is, what do you say when you're up high? Are you talking like things are good now? Or are you talking like things will only be good in the future? Right?
Oh, good. That's
Because
good. That's because sometimes that's like waiting for the shoe to drop, right? Like things are good, but I'm just waiting for something not to be so good because it can't be like this forever. And you've heard that a lot too. In fact, I kind of grew up with that, right? Like they were like, "Oh, don't always expect the whatever or whatever," right? I mean, there are ebbs and flows, but I mean, we can speak more and lean in, what we call lean in to the greatness of like feeling good and having great days and having more of them be the case. Like this is, expect miracles.
yeah, and it's true, like there will be moments in life where you don't feel top
Yeah.
notch, right? We
Yeah.
all, like our subconscious is connected to all of the subconsciousness of humanity. And so
Yes.
as humanity suffers, there's no person who doesn't feel at least a little bit of that. Obviously,
Yeah.
as acutely as if you're like right there in it. But those things, right, that we're healing collectively or personally will have to off gas. They do have to be felt as they off gas, for lack of a better word. And what we do in those times, or the conventional thought, is just wait, don't make a bigger mess of the mess. Like notice it and say, oh my gosh. And you'll know if you need to do something, right? It's not just like wait and do nothing and throw up your arms and total surrender to say, let the bad people do what the bad people do, whatever. But you just say, okay, I accept that this is my experience right now. I'm going to do what I can to make the realm I'm in charge of better. So my personal self, lift my spirits, not by bypassing it or skipping over it, but just by being like, okay, I'm here, I'm feeding myself, I'm resting, play a little, take a break. But then you'll know, like if something has fallen to your lap where you're like, I can make a difference here in the practical world, you'll know that you should go do your thing. Maybe you're going to go volunteer, solve a problem or speak something or take an action, or, it doesn't stop that. And in fact, the surrender to it is what allows the action to happen without anger, hurt, or resentment.
I was gonna
like blushing in the surrender. I don't know that I've told you, Emily, but I've had a walk-in experience, and I was sharing a little bit about this experience yesterday. And she said, well, of course that would happen. You were in a total surrender. And when you said that, it made me jump back and go, how many more mystical experiences and insights can we get around this with more of a total surrender? Like, whoa.
And I just want to point this out. Like when we first started the show, Janet, you were asking for what does it really mean to surrender? And it's lovely that we have, I mean, it's by no accident that we have you on speaking about that right now, because I feel like it's been able to come up and we can see it. We can see the transformation through
What happens?
through what happens.
And that is what yoga is about. In a way, it is to surrender by the end in Shavasana. It's to get a body to actually let go.
Yes. And I love that you brought that up, and that sounds like a very fascinating experience. Um, there's something in the Yoga Sutras, we have the yamas and the niyamas, which are the precepts for right living. And when you take your teacher training students through these, they often have some interesting reactions to this one, which is Ishvara Pranidhana, surrender to, it's usually translated surrender to God, but it actually means surrender to personal Lord. And, you know, a lot of people have their experiences with religion and they're like, that sounds like I'm just going to let, you know, whoever just boss me around and tell me I'm, you know, bad because of some belief that they have about an incorrect assumption about the Garden of Eden or who knows what. But Ishvara Pranidhana is actually such a beautiful precept because personal Lord, what does that mean? Well, you could translate that as like the higher self, the oversoul, or the deity that that person most associates with, the highest form of consciousness that they can conceptualize in the universe. And so we're not just surrendering like, do what you want, world, but we are surrendered to one, acting according to the highest that we can, and really doing that, right? And then also within that concept, we have this understanding of like surrender to what is. So, or the radical acknowledgement of what is. So instead of seeing the world as we are, which we always do, right? Surrendering to that highest so that we see the world as it truly is, which is sometimes a bit simpler seeming and sometimes a bit more complex, because then you're not looking at people like, well, they did something bad or they did something good, or this is this way and this is, you know, in these kind of harsh lines and black and whites, but you're looking at what is a very complex tapestry of human beings interacting with one another and through multiple lifetimes playing multiple roles, right? And so suddenly we're not looking at, you know, of course, situationally, you have to know what to do in a situation, but compassion arises, friendliness to other people arises, actually really good things happen when we start to do that, even just a little bit, right? That can be the case.
I was going to say everything is for me, everything is incremental. Like even if I just bring in just a tiny bit, I always feel like that's what gives you just a little bit more space that creates the wedge. And it's like, if you can get just a piece of it and then it's like, and then just another bit, right? Like that's, but if I immediately go, oh, it's not enough, then, and I pull back, then I have just like literally unhinged the door. Like, so I basically didn't even keep my wedge and I pulled everything out. So I do think even if it's just a little bit can go beyond anything that we, but I don't think that we give ourselves enough credit for that in and of itself.
Totally. Yeah. And just like the willingness to say, okay, maybe my tendency is to just shut down or tune out or do these things, but I'm just going to be willing just for another breath, even to feel what I feel or to notice what is, and to not shy away from what is reality and really what is your life, because retreating from life, you know, if we phrase things like that, like, oh, let's retreat from life, it doesn't sound quite as good as just willingness to really be present and engage and in doing that, right, do the action of actually loving yourself, which I think so many people, you know, are sitting at home Googling, how do I love myself? It's like, just.
But yeah, they don't get self-love until you get it. We did have a couple questions on the chat that I just wanted to bring through. One of the questions from Enid, she asked, is there such thing as landscape astrology, the astrology of the place where you were born and grew up, and how that affects your life. I think there's a different word other than landscape astrology, but do you want to address that?
Yeah, so I haven't heard it called landscape astrology before, but there are a couple things. There's astrocartography, which is an understanding of how the person's astrological placements are going to work within certain geographic regions. There, of course, are astrology charts of places like, an incorporated city. There's also an understanding of the vibration of the land. And of course, a lot of people are familiar with feng shui, the Chinese art of understanding vibration of space according to earth energy. In yoga, they call it vastu. It's very similar to the idea of feng shui, but it's the understanding of vibration of space and right alignment with land and with landscape. And so, yes, and astrology comes in to both of those systems. Typically with feng shui, you'll use your Chinese astrology. So, they have a different zodiac, and their astrology system is based much more in the vibration of earth, and the Chinese 5 element system, which splits earth into two different elements, wood and metal. And then in Vastu, it's based typically in your Vedic astrology, but the understanding of how directionality and our space within space, right? The 6 directions, how that is operational and what that is likely to manifest from that in your life. So we have those things all coming into play.
Yeah. Gosh, my brain is like everywhere when you talk because it made me think of like the 7 bodies. I believe that I learned that through yoga. Like we are first the physical, and then I know like astral, etheric is 1 or 2 more. And there's all these different bodies of us. Um, with astrology, how do you see that? I mean, I don't even know if there's a question here. It just made me, when you were talking about the 6 directions, it made me kind of come in with these 7 bodies. And it made me just kind of go, wow, wow, this universe is like,
It's fascinating.
so like, I mean, it's no wonder we're here where we are trying to figure things out, because we wouldn't have evolved even to have a frontal lobe and a cognitive mind if this universe wasn't so benevolent and, you know, allowing us to, grow with it in an orderly way. This
That's
is like,
true.
wow.
That's true.
I don't even know if there's a question in there, but it just makes me go, wow, really, truly infinite.
It's true, yeah. And it's just, I mean, the universe is awe-inspiring. We think we get it all, 'cause, I love to just write, I'm writing things down and have my little astrology charts and the progress chart and the transit chart, and you're like mathing your way through reality. And then, of course, you go somewhere expansive in nature, or you sit to meditate, or you have an experience, and you're like, oh, it's all of that and then more. And this vibrational, really, they say it's a holographic universe, right? Because it's a fractal vibration. I think Abhinavagupta said it is a reflection of which there is no originating picture, right? Of that one consciousness, right? That's sometimes called the no thing, or the absolute, or the beyond the absolute, or the hridaya. That's my favorite. In yoga, we have the hridaya, which means the great heart.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like amazing. And now we're all here. Consciousness is talking to one another,
Oh,
perhaps fractals of the same being,
I know. Oh my God.
It's your conversation with us is so timely because it really is bringing it back a whole bunch of different concepts. And of course, science is just now catching up, or at least acknowledging some of the stuff that has been known for eons, right? So, and the wisdom has been available, but we just weren't able to accept it because we've either grown up that way or just wasn't peer reviewed or whatnot. But now and so now that we have this big bridge, it feels like even just your conversation is just like bringing it all back together. It's like the pieces is like, and I know that other people must be feeling this too. It's like, I've heard that. I felt that. That feels light. I know that to be true. And it's like all these little pieces that have been kind of like floating here and there. And it's like all of it finally gets to kind of come together. And of course, and if I want to know the truth, I know I always would get the truth, but I know that there is so much to even try and comprehend. However, I do love that we get to live in this time where we do get to see this come to, be much more beneficial for us. It be actually empowering as opposed to living in this victimhood. Some people could be victimhood place, and instead using all of this, all these pieces to create this bigger empowerment to actually set the trajectory of our lives. How do people use now I'm going to go to questions. How can people, just regular person like me, start to jump into this and utilize this information that you share so freely, so easily, it just rolls off your tongue, to kind of navigate my life? Like, what would for just like I'm going to call myself the layman, right? Like, how would I start to utilize this information in the best possible way?
Mm.
So if you are a person, I'm going to give two answers. If you are a
Okay.
person who says, I do not want to know anything about astrology whatsoever, I stop, too many words,
Guilty.
then I would suggest starting with, and I would suggest this for everyone, even if you love astrology, but I'll give you an extra step if you are like, astrology. I would start with tending to the most mundane problems in your life. So it's like not the sexiest advice, but basically like clean your room kind of vibe.
Okay.
Are there dishes in your sink? Do you have a prickly relationship that needs, not a relationship where it's like you don't need to repair it, is too crazy, but do you need to go offer kindness to someone that you really care about?
Wow.
Are your relationships healthy? Is your relationship with your body, with your mind, like all of that? Make your body and your direct environment a harmonious place to be, because that will ripple out into the world. Like if everybody did that, imagine like the people who are, I don't know, whoever's pushing for wars, there's several wars, right, that
Sure.
happen. If everybody did that and they were like perfectly at peace with themselves, they might wake up and think, maybe I shouldn't, start a war today. Maybe I should go home and,
Yeah.
maybe I
Yeah.
should make peace with
Putin.
others. And so, that's the hope, is like everybody does that.
Right.
Right? But doing that for yourself actually has a quantum level ripple effect on others. And so it's more like a peaceful home, a peaceful mind, a peaceful heart is more powerful than we can conceptualize in our individuated states.
Mm.
Now, if you're like a person who's like, yes, and I want to know about
Yes.
astrology and yoga and all of this,
Yeah.
I would suggest practicing your yoga according to the astrological time, or if you're really into it, according to your astrological chart. Now, to do it according to the astrological time, it's not very difficult. And in fact, I send out like a suggested yoga posture each week to my email list. So if you're like, I don't want to think about it, you can just hop on there. You can always modify those or shift them to be appropriate to what you want to do personally. But there's information there. So for example, right now we're in Aquarius. It rules the ankles and the blood.
Mm.
You could just stand on one foot, right? We're
Wow.
in Leo full moon right now, which rules over the heart and the spine. Back bending is so helpful. If you don't want to do an active practice, you can just like lean back over your couch, side. You can lay on the ground and slide a pillow or a block under your hips, or if you're like doing yoga all the time, do the back bend of your choice, do a cobra pose. And so there's movements you can do, simple movements, just to move some energy through. And that's what I would suggest, because it helps the body and the mind get aligned again in this way that everything's connected, so that the energies, we can move the difficult energies through in a way where they're not trapped in the body or the mind.
Yes.
And we can invite the pleasant energies in. And so there's movements there for that. And so it's not hard to get started. And in fact, when people sign up for my email list, I have an ebook. Well, I have like a literal book.
And we are going to, there's ways to work with Emily. We have an offer as well. And we can go to.
Yeah, we can just go into that too. It seems like a good segue into sharing how we could even work with you. And sorry, I misspoke. I said that you were doing these daily, but I was always blown away by the fact that you were just doing them weekly, these different poses that we get to do. I was like, oh my God, and she's doing so many, like she puts these out and I meant to say weekly. And because I just thought that was such a contribution for everyone, right? Like that's just being on your list. That's awesome. Like, and now I'm like inspired to go and just like acknowledge my body and do even a back bend, just to start, just to get somewhere. But for those who are interested.
Yeah, what I wanted to mention before, our inner circle, one of the girls was mentioning something about the back of her neck. And I'm an intuitive body worker. And I was telling her, just lay on your bed and let your head just slightly drop off the side. Like not all the way, just slightly. And it just seemed like that was information that she needed to know. And it was just, right around this time. So it's just funny that my intuition matches kind of even the actual information, but just like jaw dropping some of this stuff. It's just like how, feng shui came
Exactly.
from intuition, and it matches up with the astrology
and what you were sharing,
the energy and the everything.
Yeah.
It's just so freaking cool.
Yeah.
Right.
It's cool. Yeah. And so many people, like I've been doing this forecast for like probably 7 or 8 years weekly. And I remember when I first started doing it, I was so shocked. Every time I would go to a yoga class, the teacher would be doing my recommended pose of the week. And I was like, these people, they're not reading my email list necessarily, but I think we're all tuned in to something.
Love it.
And
so tuned in.
Pick it up in whatever language it comes, right?
Yeah.
So Emily also does tarot. Tarot, that's how you pronounce it, right? Emily, is this can we go through this package and just kind of introduce this to them?
Yeah, so tarot is an amazing tool. It comes from a synchronistic approach, which has roots in Egypt, in the Kabbalah, in yoga as well. You see written in there, there's symbolism in it that speaks directly to the subconscious. And there's so much written in it. Astrologically, there are tarot associations with astrology, with the Hebrew alphabet, and with numerology, there are these associations. And even just a little understanding of these things can help you read the symbolic in your everyday life. And the tarot, especially the major arcana, can truly be used as these tools for living life, not just to read a tarot card spread, right, which is a wonderful thing to do, but as tools for meditation, as tools for sparking right patterning in your personal consciousness. And so I taught this class live a couple years ago, and it was a really beautiful experience for me. I had actually just come right out of a death in my family. My father had passed away, and he loved the tarot too, and I used one of his decks as my teaching deck, and sort of like an in memoriam. But because of that, I priced this way lower because I wanted to like give something from the heart. And so, yeah, oh, you're scrolling right through the this is what we learn in the course. It's 5 weeks, it's just an hour a day. If you get it, you don't have to do it that quickly, but you can. It's meant to sort of take you through the major arcana. So week 1 was called Navigating Life, Manifesting and Solving Problems Like the Fool. And so we were really laying the groundwork about the concepts that connect you to what real manifestation is. So not just like, you know, the sort of basic sort of TikTok. I mean, I love
Yeah.
internet, but just the sort of like, if you can dream it, you know, you can do it. I love all that stuff too, you know, make your vision boards, but to understand like how are the operational principles of your own consciousness interacting with one another.
Yes.
That's really week 1.
So this is 1 hour for each of the sessions under week 1?
Yeah,
Or
they're
is
each
it? Okay.
they're
So
each an hour. So you're getting 25
Wow.
So you're saying week 1 is really 5 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Oh my holy.
I know. I
guess
remember
didn't
feeling
realize this
no,
was
I
before.
we did. I remember feeling the same way last time. I was like, oh my gosh, it's such a really profound package and learning. Like you will. This is I remember because I remember you saying that about your father too. Which is so beautiful. So thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
For sure. Yeah. And then we went into the embodied secrets of yoga, which is talking about like the Kundalini, the manifestation of the light. It definitely touches on some of the stuff I was saying about the Virgo ruled sections that should be in session 5 that week, which is the Hermit and the physical unfoldment of the light within. So what that means and how working with that card can influence that. And then the additional really beautiful meaning of that card, which is that you're never alone. You have these ascended masters that maybe we don't know or consciously see, but who are assisting us at all times, like holding that light out. Week 3, the balms for when life gets tough. So really how to handle that. And then also what is likely happening. Sometimes we ask, why am I suffering? Is there any reason? And it's like, well, maybe there's no like reason, maybe you don't deserve it, but there is a seed in any circumstance which can sprout something beautiful. And so it takes you through that, as well as some of the first layers of awakening that people experience. And then we get into week 5, which is the cosmic oneness. Oh no, sorry. Then we have darkness to light. So these are more seeds of awakening, and how to solve your own problems, really. That week's really special. They're all really special. I love each of the tarot cards. I get really enamored
I
with them.
know.
And then week 5, cosmic oneness and how to give a stellar reading. So literally the last 2 cards are about these states of consciousness that I won't pretend to be fully enlightened at all. Like we're all enlightened to some degree. Our higher selves are enlightened, and then, we're all walking this journey together. And so the judgment card and the world really show what happens when a person becomes fully awake. And so the cards start to describe states of consciousness where most of us have yet to consciously traverse in a way that we remember. And so, and of course, tarot is a mixing up of the word rota, right? The same base as rotate. So what is tarot? But it's the wheel of life, right? And so then we get into a couple things for reading, reading strategies, advanced reading techniques, and then numerology, so that you can, and numerology is sprinkled all through it, but I just like to cover some concepts that I think are key to have in your awareness. And so I did this originally for $5.55, and then for you guys, I put it at $2.22
Oh,
because I feel like it's very accessible. Even at $5.55, I felt it's about half of what I normally would charge for a class, and it's
sure.
meant to bring forward hopefully something that is really positive in your life. And that's what I found tarot to be for me, is a very easy tool to use that has perpetual gifts. Perpetual gifts. So yeah, it's really
So
cool.
you mentioned at the end, like readings and whatnot. This be, would someone be able to read for someone else after having taken this course?
I definitely think you could read for someone else, and
Yeah,
probably a much higher level than, well, I don't want to tell you what you will be able to do, but probably I think
right.
you could read at a very good level and
Yeah,
really actionable advice from readings that are tapped in. And certainly, I mean, I think you would need to additionally work with it alongside just
yes,
listening to
yes,
me, right? You need to like get out your cards and
yes,
put them with it. You know,
right,
it must
right.
be integrated. But if you listen to these lessons and you integrate them, and I think I even give on a few of them like practices to do that are very simple, just like breathing and things like that, to integrate this stuff. It's very simple. All you need is a tarot deck. You can, buy one on the internet. You might have one
Yeah,
in the house. Um, and you'll get a lot. And even if you don't have a tarot deck, you can just look at a picture of one on you're all on a computer or something, connected to the internet, right? You can find these images. So, and you'll have slides from me, which have the cards on them.
yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
I feel like every time we have you on, we're just kind of like in this like whole wow land. So if you want to be a tarot reader, or you just want to understand more and you can see the kind of depth that Emily brings,
Yes.
this might be the package for you. It's $222. It has what, 5 times 30, 30 hours.
Yeah, hours,
Right?
yes,
Did the
of
math
like
right?
of instruction there, and just, I mean, obviously you are you and your father are very, very gifted in being able to share this with us and the world. Like, thank you.
I twisted her arm to get over half off, by the way.
It's quite amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, Dana says amazing information today. Yes, it always is.
Yeah.
I feel so called to do your like program as well, because I have this tarot deck that I bought probably about
Yeah.
half a year ago, and in a channeling, one of the things that one of the things that became to light was this, that there was a little bit of disappointment that I didn't know astrology and that I didn't have a tarot. Like, it was one of the things that was like, oh, that is a part of wisdom. And I thought, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any in that, really in my library. I mean, I knew some, but not to any, I mean, not to any degree. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to buy myself a tarot cards, and I'm going to be with them. And I do feel comfortable with them, but I also know that there's so much to learn, especially the kana and all of the different pieces of it. I mean, it's quite fascinating. And I did do a little bit of study, kind of like whatever I found on the internet, but it was nothing near as insightful as you have portrayed here. Yeah.
In fact, I think on the internet they make it like this little simple thing, like
Oh, yeah.
like a card game.
Yeah, and I did feel kind of turned off by that a little bit. And I was like, I mean, of course, I'm happy to have all the resources available for anybody, but I didn't feel like it really went into the importance of like really, and I can see that you've really gone through that and the way that you've laid out the cards.
How it really matters
Yeah.
to people in
Yeah.
their lives and their direction.
Yeah.
It's It really is remarkable. I mean, cards are based on the tarot, right? It's just the
Yeah.
there in the cards. So you can read like you could read with a deck of cards. But and the numbers mean something very beautiful and the suits mean something very beautiful, but the pictures in the major arcana,
Yeah.
especially, they
Yeah.
depict things like, how do you listen to the voice within? What is the right relationship of your conscious mind, your sort of chattering mind, with your subconscious and your higher self? What is
Wow.
the order in which information comes into your being? How can you solve problems when they look like terrifying monsters in your face? And what must you do in order to experience the next levels of awakening? What troubles must you solve? This kind of thing. And of course, how do you manifest things into your life? And then once they've manifested, because lots has already manifested in your life,
Yes.
how do you sort of sort out the wheat from the chaff and then adjust your manifestations to make them more favorable in a sort of perpetual cycle of life? So I really love the tarot. Even if someone's like, I'm not going to take the class, I suggest looking at a major arcana deck and looking through those cards, especially. Um, but I also suggest if you're like, oh, I want to learn that, please take the course.
Yeah.
I love teaching. I love teaching tarot. I love teaching astrology. I love teaching astro yoga. You know, we have these, I have this school, the International School of Astro Yoga, for that reason. And so I encourage people to use those resources because that is why they are there.
Wow, thank you, Emily.
Thank
Just a
you.
reminder, everyone, if you are looking for special offers presented in any of these shows and you're watching on YouTube, it is in the caption. Of course, if you do belong in our inner circle and you just want to be on our newsletter so you get notifications, these calls, go to houthustle.com and we will send you these offers as well. So wow, 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 wow. Also, if you guys have any guest suggestions or recommendations that you'd like for the show, please just email us. It's team@houthustle.com.
Emily, do you have any parting words for us today?
Just from the bottom of my heart, you know, you two are treasures, and I just want to
Oh,
thank you for having me on. And to the people live, I see you guys, or I see
yeah.
your pictures and your names, and I just want to say thank you for spending this hour with me. It's just, it's really a joy, and so what a wonderful thing. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
just a couple announcements.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and thank you, Emily. We'll go ahead and let Emily go. And great conversation. Joe says, thank you, Emily. And then we said, Dana says, thank you for the information today. We also have, for next week, we have Aurora Luna Star. She will be on. She is a intergalactic channel, and she talks about how we can utilize the information that we receive through even channeling and how we can really connect with that parts of ourselves in order to get more guidance, in order to understand how to navigate through some of the more turbulent times. We also have next week, in my little nifty cheat sheet here is it left because we had a little bit of internet instability and I didn't want to crash the internet. But next week we have Thursday we have
Suzanne Alexander.
Yeah,
who reads Akashic Records.
That's right. And then on Tuesday we have
I have no idea.
and Tuesday we do have another speaker.
newsletter.
Yes, for sure. And so we just wanted to make sure that you have all the information. If you think that you are not signed up for our newsletter and you're not getting our free gifts, be sure to do that at houthustle.com. And then tomorrow we start the Mystique Society, and we have our evening course, and it'll be the first one that we're doing. And it's going to be really exciting to come together and create some unity there. And it's basically how we take all of this and we just go a little bit further and really open up the lines for people to be able to kind of share what they're learning. How do they bring their gifts online? It's so magical. Love being a part of that. I have totally changed my whole life because of it. So Mystique starts tomorrow. If you have any interest in joining us, you can, or if you have questions about it, team@houthustle.com, or you can visit the Mystique page. I'm not sure if we still have the offer up.
The offer's up. We haven't changed it yet. We will change it
It's-
later today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you still want the special, you can still hop in. It's 111 for 6 months and 222 for the entire year as the discount. And if you just want to try it for a month, it's $37. That is at houthustle.com/join-society.
Yay.
And I will also put that in the YouTube feed for today, but that offer will change. Of course, the seat will still be there, but you have to join at the regular price. All right.
Well, thank you, everybody. We love having you join us, and we are just wishing you have a great weekend. Or sorry, we'll see you on Thursday.
We'll see you on Thursday. And we're talking, and actually she shared about Aurora Luna.
Yes.
Well, I've already asked if she will also help us open some of our gifts around channeling too.
Very
So that should be a very, very fun call.
Yeah, well, come plan on being engaging in that day, because then you can have your gifts come online as well. So bring yourselves.
Absolutely. Up to